Afraid to be seen, afraid to be embarrassed, afraid to take a risk. Because what if I fail? I'm 16 and I'm the kind of girl who looks at the ground when I walk in a room. I didn't want to be seen. It didn't feel safe. I would walk into a room with rolled in shoulders as if I could shrink and disappear. I had zero confidence. I thought confidence was something people were just born with, that people were naturally confident. They came out of the womb feeling capable and shining and trusting themselves. And me, I was not that. I didn't even think confidence would be weird. That girl, she walked into a jiu-jitsu class entirely by accident. I didn't even know what jiu-jitsu was. I thought jiu-jitsu was something like fitness kickboxing, and I would be punching the air and making loud noises. If I had known what awaited me beyond those gym doors, I never would have entered. 10 minutes later, I found myself lying flat on the mat. My legs are wrapped around a 35-year-old man. I'm learning how to choke him between my thighs. I was mortified. Mortified is really an understatement. I was embarrassed, I felt humiliated, and I felt like running away. Jiu-jitsu, for the uninitiated, is the vice form that is basically what happens when the fight goes to the ground. It uses leverage, which means smaller opponents can control and submit much larger, stronger opponents. I was awful. At the end of every single class, people roll or grapple for about 25 minutes. And I was just flopping on the mat using all of my strength, trying to bench press my opponents off of me. My first ever competition, my opponent literally laid like a starfish on top of me for the full 5 minutes while I flailed around. In my head, I'm screaming, I am never going to be good at this. And how many things have I said that about in my life? How many have you? My list is long. Singing, dancing, organization, charisma, public speaking, and I could list 100 more. I thought some people are just born naturally good at these things. And me, I'm not one of them. But here's what I learned on the jiu-jitsu mat. Anyone who stays and shows up and fails for long enough eventually becomes a black belt. I was not born bad at jiu-jitsu. I was not untalented. I was simply untrained. And through the training method that I learned on the jiu-jitsu mat that I'm going to tell you about here today, I realized that you can learn anything. Any skill, any character trait, any talent can be learned and developed. Even the things that I thought were fixed about my personality could be improved through training. But before we start talking about training, we have to think about your relationship with failure. Because failure is not a defect. Failure is actually part of the design of learning. On the jiu-jitsu mat, failure is unmistakable. We call failure a tap. We tap out just like this. And that tap is black but white. It's very clear. You can't pretend that you didn't get choked or armored. You're gonna end up asleep or with a broken arm. That failure being very clear is actually an asset because it helps you evaluate and move on. On a jiu-jitsu mat, you do 3 main activities: instruction, drilling, and rolling. Instruction is where you learn how to do the movie. Drilling is where you practice it, but in a controlled environment. And rolling is where you get to apply it in a real stake scenario. After your roll, you tap out or acknowledge the failure, and then move on and try again. I realized that this training cycle applies perfectly to learning anything. Instruct, drill, roll, tap, try again. It's an iterative process. And the thing is, the faster you iterate, the better. There's something unexpected that happens when you start failing faster. You take the power out of the failure. You become completely desensitized to it. And you realize that very few failures are actually fatal. Most failures are just opportunities to tap out and try again. Let's apply this. Most adults I know have tried to learn a language. They download an app or they get a tutor. They can't hold their R's. They mix up Sarah and a star for the 100th time. And they sound like a toddler when they're trying to order a coffee. And then at about week 3, they say, I'm just not good at languages. And they quit. But here's the thing. Very few people are good at languages at week 3. Week 3 is just about instruction. Drilling at week 3 is supposed to feel ridiculous. Let's apply a cycle. Instruction for language learning is infinite. Talks, tutors, native speakers who will happily help you for free. Drilling can just be 15 minutes a day. Enrolling, say something, anything badly to someone who speaks the language. Get it wrong, get corrected, try and deaf. That's the entire cycle. I've used this training cycle not just to learn how to fight. 10 years later, I'm still on the mat, still training, still on my journey to black belt, but miles ahead of where I started. But also to learn a language, to learn how to dance, to learn to lead a team, and to learn to build a business. But more than anything, this cycle of learning has given me the confidence that I can learn anything through drilling. And that confidence will allow you to take risks. Just 3 years after walking into my first jiu-jitsu class at 19, I founded my first company. That company has gone on to do millions of dollars in sales. I've been named Forbes 30 under 30, and let's be negotiating a 3-shark deal on Shark Tank. And that girl who used to walk into rooms looking at the ground would, in just a few short years, walk into rooms with hundreds of investors to ask for $1 million. Not because I always knew what I was doing or I was no longer afraid of failure, but because I knew that if I put in enough effort, I could train myself to greatness. And that mentality of I can train myself to greatness gives you the courage and the power to do something that most adults have lost touch with. Being a beginner. Really earnestly and trying something new, sucking at it, and continuing to try again and again until you got it. The person that you want to be, who has all of the talents and traits and skills that you wish you had, you can become them. They are on the other side of all of the things that you've said you're just not yet truly good at. In fact, the only thing between the person you are right now and the person you want to become is how many times you are willing to learn, drill, roll, tap, and try again between here and there. I want to leave you with this. You're not behind. You're not untalented. You're simply untrained. And you can start drilling right now with the confidence that you can train yourself to greatness. You're just a dozen taps from your black belt.